Pot, the absolute butcher. Now the Vietnamese are pulling out of Cambodia. Now, what's going to happen there? Is it going to be a bloodbath like
you remember,
like Afghanistan, you suppose?
You remember I said back when the three big failures of the Carter administration, from my point of view, the contradictions that represented a betrayal. One of them was scotching the Olympics. Yeah. For political reasons, which was betraying the athletics and the peace athletic process of the world. Another one was supporting Pol Pot, the greatest mass murderer of modern times after Henry Kissinger, perhaps. Supporting him as the legitimate government at the United Nations when he had no power whatsoever inside the country, but Jimmy Carter did that. And the third thing, of course, was suing me and taking my profits away from my book and putting me under a court order. Those were the reasons why I couldn't vote for Jimmy Carter in the '80 election.
So what are the fruits of this Kampuchea policy? For years, we've been, it must be 10 years now, we've been supporting Pol Pot along with the Chinese. Are the Chinese still behind him too, or were they finally shamed into dropping this character?
Now, what they've got is four factions that are vying for power, and the U.S. has actually made some policy statements saying that Pol Pot cannot be in charge of the winning faction. But once again, we've created forces. Now, mind you, I was on my way back to Vietnam in '85. The Vietnamese were opening up, 10-year anniversary, and the U.S. media went in, and I went back with my lead to visit her family. And while we were traveling, William Casey and George Shultz toured the area, and in Bangkok announced a new destabilization program against Vietnam in Kampuchea. So we have created now, putting our money in willy-nilly, we've created several factions. And the Vietnamese, not that we've rocked their boat very successfully in Kampuchea, but the Russian economic policy, Russia was underwriting that totally. Vietnam's on its knees economically, and Russia was bankrolling that. And the Russians decided that that's one place they can cut, some of their losses and also win some goodwill with the United States. So the Vietnamese are pulling out, and we do not have control. We have created something that we don't have control of, with every possibility that we're going to see another major bloodbath in Kampuchea, for which we will be, in part, responsible.
In fact, going back to, I guess it's early 70s, Kampuchea was pretty much out of the Southeast Asian wars until Nixon started secretly bombing the country because he thought that North Vietnamese and Viet Cong forces were using Cambodia as a sanctuary. And because of U.S. bombings, that country was destabilized and got into a situation of total chaos. It was one of the most peaceful, most beautiful countries in the world.
The bombings plus the CIA creation of the Lon Nol government, which went into the utter corruption, the standard pattern. And this reminds me, by the way, in London, some of the peace activists, my conditions going over there is I would give 4 lectures, including the one in the House of Commons, but that they would talk to me 50% of the time, so I would get their input, and which was really useful to me, getting Tony Benn to give his assessment of where socialism is going and where capitalism is going and where the Soviet Union is going. But they came to the hotel and played a video. They gave it to the hotel, and the hotel put it on their internal video so I could watch it on the TV. Narrated by Eartha Kitt, called After the Fire, which is a study of the environmental war we waged in Vietnam and the Mongoloid children that are being born today. And in my own province in Tay Ninh, where I was the officer in charge, they interviewed a nurse who was a midwife with 2 assistants, the only medical help in the province. And they were saying that when a woman comes to us pregnant, we ask her where she lives, and we can tell her automatically whether or not she has a good chance of delivering a normal child just by where she lives.
All the chemical warfare in Vietnam has destroyed this parts of the environment.
This was the 2 greatest moments of shock that I felt as I've come into the peace movement. One of them was seeing the the children. In '83, I went down and actually held maimed children in Nicaragua. And the second one was seeing this film and just seeing what we deliberately did to the environment, killing the 1,000-year-old trees and permanently poisoning the land, and seeing the photograph, you know, the shots of the children that had been born since.
John, is there any possibility of stopping these CIA wars? We've seen the fruits that they bear, which is death, mayhem, destruction, chaos, etc. Is it possible to stop Bush and the secret wars? Bush himself was head of the CIA. He's obviously someone deeply committed to covert action. While he smiles and talks about a kinder, gentler nation, he's supporting all of these CIA operations.
And he's been open and truthful about it. He says he supports them.
But can this be stopped? I mean, is there a mood in Congress or elsewhere in the country that these are not helping anyone? They don't serve any real U.S. interests. They just destabilize and create chaos and death. They're totally immoral. They're irrational. Is there any sense that this is what's really going on?